gliders were not new. As early as 1932, the German scientist Opel fixed solid fuel rockets to this small glider to achieve tentative rocket-powered flight. By 1941, the idea had been developed into the Messerschmitt 163. This diminutive delta-winged fighter was designed by Dr. Lippisch and powered by an incredibly efficient liquid-fueled rocket. The prototype, flown by Heini Dittmar, took off from Karlshagen at Peenemünde in 1941. On becoming airborne, the undercarriage was jettisoned, and the aircraft demonstrated an amazing rate of climb. Later, Dittmar was towed to altitude to conserve fuel, when he achieved 623 miles per hour, easily breaking the existing world speed record, though naturally this was not claimed due to wartime security. During that record-breaking flight, Heini Dittmar probed the edges of what was later to be called the sound barrier. Heini Dittmar was not the only test pilot to fly the 163. Hanna Reitsch also test flew one of the early models from the Messerschmitt airfield at Lechfeld, and she later flew a more powerful version, now named Comet, which made a great impression on her.
And I can only tell you, it was fascinating. It was like thundering through the skies, sitting on a cannonball, like being intoxicated by speed. It was not difficult to fly it. It was only an overwhelming impression. At the end of the airfield boundary, you already reached about 500 miles per hour, and with constant speed, you were climbing up in 1.5 to 2 minutes into a height of 30,000 feet.
Exhilarating though it undoubtedly was, after 6 minutes the Comet's rocket fuel was exhausted, and the world's fastest fighter became the world's fastest glider, which called for extremely accurate flying. Fuel used by the Comet consisted of C-Stoff and T-Stoff. They were basically methanol alcohol and hydrogen peroxide, which are highly incompatible. A few drops of one on the other produced a violent reaction. T-Stoff was capable of spontaneous combustion when in contact with any organic material. Which of course included the pilot. In view of the nature of the fuel, Hanna Reitsch, like all Comet pilots, had special protective clothing. But despite this protection, some pilots were dissolved alive by the murderous fuel. Hanna Reitsch well remembers the dangers of test flying the Messerschmitt Comets.
I experienced 2 comrades blowing to pieces when their plane exploded.
On one of Hanna Reitsch's test flights, as she was towed into the air, the undercarriage refused to jettison.
I couldn't get rid of it. At the same time, this often happens when you have an accident, that many things at the same time go out of work. So all electrical operating instruments were kaput. Also the landing flaps, and so many, and also the radio connection with the tow pilot and with the ground. So it was difficult to let the tow pilot know that I wanted to come into a great height. So for 10 minutes he circled in a height of about 900 feet. But I stubbornly remained on the rope. And suddenly, and I only watched when the ambulance and the stretcher and the fire truck all came to receive me, and I thought that, oh, I hope I will come quite safely down. Suddenly, the tow pilot went up to 9,000 feet, and I released the cable, and I tried with positive and negative G's to get rid of the undercarriage, but I felt that I didn't succeed. But I hope to bring this test plane to the ground safely, because such a test plane has many valuable instruments, and but because all electrical operating instruments didn't work, also not the landing flaps, the last side slip, I had to come to approach the airfield in a greater height as normally, in order to be sure that you will reach the place, and you had then to lose high with the cautious side slip. But this destroyed the whole airflow, because it was only wing without tail plane. It came out of control and crashed in a field that was completely demolished, and my head came to an instrument, and I suffered. My nose was, I have an artificial nose, and it's quadruple of fractured head and vertebra broken and many things. So after having been 5 months hospitalized, I was well again, spurred on by the only burning wish to continue as test pilot again.
Multiple injuries, Hanna Reitsch flew to Peenemünde, but she had chosen a most unfortunate date.
When I arrived there, just after having been recovered after my accident with the rocket plane, I just arrived when in the first night was the horrible bombardment in Peenemünde.
It was the first RAF raid on the secret establishment, causing considerable damage to the V-2 rockets and the living quarters of the scientists. But once again, Hanna Reitsch's amazing luck had held.
I'm terribly ashamed that I must say I slept the whole night. They forgot I slept in the house where you see, there was Peenemünde West and Peenemünde East. In one was the development of Werner von Braun's V2, and on West we wanted to make the V1 and the rocket flights and other things were down there. But I had my quarter in the house where the officers slept, and when there was the siren, I didn't hear it. I slept so deeply, and everybody thought, oh, the others had fetched Hanna. So I was quite alone in this house, sleeping deeply. I didn't hear anything about all. And the next morning, I was so ashamed when suddenly I thought, oh, it's misty, but it was only smoke about all what was burning. And you see, the main attack was east, and I was in the west. It was not so near.
Throughout the war, Hanna Reitsch remained a civilian, but she was personally awarded 2 Iron Crosses by Adolf Hitler. What were her impressions of the German leader?
I can't judge how it was with Hitler in all other areas. I only can judge that in what he was interested about my doing in test flights, I was deeply astonished about his questions and his interest.